All right. So I've been, of course, focusing on Trump and such. It fills my mind. And I thought this helps me. This Ann Applebaum woman wrote this article, and she had a point to make. This, by the way, is very common to me. She had some point which I didn't care about really, but something she said on the way really made seemed effective to me. She talks about previous autocrats and the things they did in other countries. And when she gets down, and her main thing is the Republicans acting as collaborators, which is an interesting issue. But the thing that's always puzzled me is understanding why Trump acts the way he does. And I think she got it here, that she talks about the first thing Trump did was he lied about the size of his the crowd on his inauguration day. And then he made the weather service or somebody modify their photograph to make it look like more people were there.
Oh, yeah.
He all the
the marker, right?
Oh, no, that was later. That was a similar issue. But the very first thing he did on being president was make an obvious lie that everyone knew was false, order everyone to agree with him, order the agencies to falsify the record to hack that up. And I watched, just baffled, what's he thinking? And I finally got it. This is because what matters to him is that you're forced to obey him. And the same thing is when he went to Comey. He had this secret meeting with Comey. He called Comey and he said, look, I want you to promise me that you are loyal to me and you will do what I say. You'll squash the investigation because I say so. And Comey said, I'm just going to obey the law and the rules. And he said, no, that's not what I want. I want you to be loyal to me and do whatever I say, whether it's right or wrong. And then he wanted Jeff Sessions to do the same thing. I want you to rig this court case for me. And what do you mean you're going to recuse yourself? You're my lawyer. You do what I say. And it's what he's focusing on is that he's in charge. And this is something that's very hard for me to understand. And his only issue is whether he's in charge. So he thinks he solved coronavirus. Look, I'm telling you, coronavirus is gone. It's over. Now just repeat after me. It's gone. It's over there. Now everything's fixed because what matters is I'm in charge. And this, I think, is very interesting and not even exactly wrong. This is how the animal world works. You have this one buck with the big horns, and everybody's just supposed to follow that guy. And as long as everybody stays loyal and the whole herd stays together, that's pretty much the right thing to do, no matter how much of an idiot he is. It is, anyway, I thought it was very interesting to understand this. And it also seemed to me very much like what people say about rape. Rape is not a crime of sex, it's a crime of dominance, a crime of violence. People want to feel powerful. And, anyway, I think it helps me understand Trump. Now, the people following him are harder for me to understand. I haven't got there yet, which is where this author is. But Trump himself, I feel like I'm beginning to get some clue how he thinks.
So I think you insulted Irvin.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe he had trouble with Zoom. I sure had a lot of trouble with Zoom earlier. But anyway, there's all these other ones related. Tom Cotton had this article in the New York Times about how he thinks we should send in the troops and squash all the protesters and keep them in line. And then everybody got real mad about the New York Times for putting that out. And there's just a lot of this.
Tom Cotton's doubling down. Today he said that they should, essentially he said that they should afford the protesters no quarter, which in military terms is pretty serious.
It is. And, I think, but anyway, I'm very interested to watch this going. Mattis coming out against Trump, I thought would be a big move. The military people are getting fed up with the way he's abusing the military. But anyway, I'm watching and trying to understand what made Trump happen. But of course, the real problem is not Trump. The real problem is people supporting him. That's the part I'm nowhere near understanding yet. Like 38% of Americans love this guy.
I was talking about this earlier with Tom. One thing that I've seen happening is that I think that a lot of news media are conflating the protests with riots and looting. And in a lot of respects, like one of the things I've seen here in the Bay Area is that many times those are mutually exclusive. Just the other night here in the East Bay, they were looting in Vallejo and Richmond and like Walnut Creek and stuff when the actual protests were happening in Oakland. And, stuff like that. And then it just the narrative snowballs from there in that, these are all bad people, and we need this law and order because otherwise we're going to get then that's going to come here and they're going to burn our businesses and homes down and all this stuff that's not. They're essentially playing on people's fears.
But aren't there good and bad people on each side?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
well,
but I mean, that's pretty complex here. That's a pretty complex, you're saying they're actually like, we can't actually stereotype everything
Right.
in the world.
well, I would like to have some intelligent voices from the right. Like I'm going to have my class that's mainly about politics next semester again. And last time I taught it, I tried to get a right winger to speak. And we even had a friendly right winger, but I couldn't get any significant dialogue going. It is a crazy time. For example, I heard there's a guy named Rich Lowry who's from National Review. I hear on podcast and he sounds reasonable. And then I heard him say, when they were trying to talk about Floyd, he said, well, there isn't actually no racism in America. The cops don't abuse black people any more than white people. I'm like, wait a minute, what? And so I found the origin of that. This is pretty incredible. This guy has evidence that black people are just fine and treated the same as white people. And his evidence goes like this. The number of, somebody make this stupid thing shut up. All right. The number of black people killed is 209. Number of white people killed is only 399. So see, more white people got killed than black people. Now there's only 10% of the people black. So that number bothers me. He's got similar arguments. And what this reminds me of is like the 1920s, they had scientific evidence that Jews are inferior and stuff. I mean, you can make numbers to back up any preconceived notion, but I realize it makes it hard to understand how you can have two sides when the two sides don't even agree on simple basic facts.
It's like that chart that you had the other week
Yeah.
of the way that the curvature goes, that if you fiddle with the numbers enough, then it looks like by now all the COVID stuff would end.
Well, yeah, and that appears to be the United States' entire position is that COVID is over. We can just go out and work. Everything will be fine. Even out here in California, that it's still going up and we're just going to open up anyway.
Except for some reason, the State Department's still not issuing passports because they're not open.
But we didn't ever do the contact tracing and testing. We just ignored all the prevention. We're just going to open without it and then be surprised when it goes up. I don't really understand our nation. There are a lot of things about our nation where we just seem to be complete blundering fools. Anyway,
that might just be the way to understand it. We're not what we used to be.
Well, I
don't know if we're not what we used to be. I think we're learning what we've always been.
Yes,
Or
I don't
that.
think we were ever any better. I mean, we founded on slavery and racism. We're still, in that regard, we're a little better than we used to be, I think. But we're anyway. I think we haven't invented any new stupidity except Fox News and social media. I think Facebook and Fox News are the new things that if they used to have only one source of news that was in the middle, and most like 90% of people believed what was on there. It's a new thing that half of us are in like a fantasy world, drifting off into crazy town.
I mean, these divisive politics are very effective, though.
They do.
Ooh, I got a good one.
Yeah.
To your earlier point, is some people are starting to figure out what we are, and it's like, well, the minority knows what we've been. Everybody else is starting to figure that out.
Well, yes, I think that's a fair statement. Anyway, I'm going to teach this class, including politics again, and it would be nice if I could get some right-wing voices that could speak something that is apparently on the same planet with the rest of us. I'm not too hopeful of it, but I'll give it a shot.
I have also heard people saying enough's enough. I mean, even some of his own staff are, defecting, and of course he's backpedaling as quickly as possible to say, "Oh well, I fired them. You didn't break up with me. I broke up with you."
Yeah, that's maddish. But I think it's going to be raging hot through November. So both sides will be distorting everything to the max.
I mean, the whole thing is that this is never going to be over, because what happened is that when George Floyd was murdered, a lot of us spoke out, and we all put up, our support for Black Lives Matter, and we spoke up for equality. But there were a number of people out there that instead of supporting equality, instead of supporting justice, decided to put up things like Confederate flags, to put up pro-Trump propaganda, to support the troops, to support the cops, who are acting like troops. And we can't forget that. We can't forget who those people are, what they did. And so this isn't some temporary, like, oh, we're having some argument. I mean, there's some serious divisions that are going to have very lasting repercussions.
I would very much hope so that is true.
Yeah.
Well, it's the way it has been all along. We're still fighting the Civil War.
Yeah.
We didn't really ever resolve it yet. We're still fighting exactly the same thing.
Yeah. I would hope that this is the end of it.
I don't think there can be. Now, I've been reading voices from people from South Africa and stuff, how they ended it. I mean, it is possible to do it, but first you have to admit it happened, and then you have to have some plan of like reparations and stuff. There are some people with realistic plans to get out of it, but we're nowhere near that. We're still where 30 or 40% of us are pretending it does nothing wrong still.
Even though the South Africa's culture, I mean, even though they're legally out of apartheid now, it doesn't mean that the cultural ramifications aren't there, because they are big time. I mean, there's still a massive racism problem in South Africa and police brutality.
Well,
there would have to be, of course, but I think we're far behind them in going through this transition. We're still pretending there's no change to make.
Right, we haven't accepted it.
Yeah,
I haven't heard any concrete plans for reform that, like, we're going to do this and then do this and do this. There's a lot of things floating around, like defunding the police, and then replace them with something. I don't know. I mean, there really needs to be our leaders really need to come together and and figure out a good, path forward about how we want to proceed with law enforcement in this country. What new organizations do we want? How do we handle various things? Because one of the big issues right now is that we treat all offenses to the law the same. So someone who is having a psychotic break, we send in the police. Why are we sending the police for that? Why are we not sending EMTs? Why are we not sending psychiatric professionals? We're sending in police for that. That's not okay. And then we send in the police if someone gets robbed versus somebody who gets caught using a counterfeit bill. So we know what these are, but somebody really needs to come up with a really concrete set of changes to be made to the system.
We do, and if somebody like Warren or Bernie got in, there would be some big changes, but it's going to be Biden at best, and that will be minor incremental changes. So it'll be a long time before any of these big things happen.
Yeah, and it's not going to be it's not just the system, it's also the culture.
Yeah.
Just because you take away the police and change it with something else, that doesn't fix a regular person like myself getting stared down because what are you doing in Monterey? You don't belong here.
They just busted an Orange County deputy wearing 3%er regalia while they're on the job, busting up riots, which is a white nationalist.
Yep.
group.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of white nationalists in police and in military. Anyway, so maybe we'll go on to this one. We got the Iranian hackers from Liz.
Yeah. So surprise, surprise. Both major parties have been targeted recently, yet again, just like 4 years ago. This time, according to Google, it's Iran and China, but could just as easily be Russians as well again. So and I think that people are so busy talking about, like, the narrative really seems to be focused so heavily around mail-in ballots and how that's open to fraud and abuse, but we're really not looking at stuff like this or stuff like what my next story is about, which is the media and social media that we're consuming and how those affect our elections drastically.
The stuff that is actually affecting.
Yeah. Like, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
No.
Well, although when they dumped out the Democratic emails, I think that was a significant blow against the Democrats. So this kind of hacking has an effect, but I think by far the biggest effect is the social media propaganda.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then you've got Zoom. I thought this is awesome. I was thinking I got to make a project out of it, but I haven't got it working yet.
Oh my! Wait, what? Are you serious? Oh my God, that's so
there
cool.
are two of them. One of them is the one that caught my attention, is by putting GIFs.
Yeah.
From Giffy.
Yes. You can post a GIF and you can put metadata in it and you can get code execution or something like that.
Yep.
I know it looks awesome, and there's two of them. So I totally got to write this up. The other one was the one with more details. Anyway, there's one that, anyway, yes, this looks awesome. I'd like to get it. I'd like to make a project where you install a vulnerable version of Zoom and hack in. In fact, one thing I saw is there are sort of step-by-steps, but there is no Metasploit module. And I've been looking for something where the project is writing the Metasploit module. I've got a couple of them. But anyway, this is probably going to be my next project, is trying to refine this.
Okay.
Anyway, of course, Zoom has patched it, so I don't think it matters for normal users, but it's good, clean fun.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then we got police brutality in Buffalo. I haven't heard
of
this.
Is this the Facebook? Oh, yeah.
So this guy. This is the one. This, I didn't know. Remember, Buffalo is where they took this old guy and just shoved him.
Yeah, content warning people. Yeah.
And then they said he tripped. That's the
You're saying that as he's playing it.
He tripped. And so they then suspended the two guys involved, and all the other 50 resigned in protest or something like that.
Yeah, not out of protest because of what they did to the guy. Out of protest because they resigned the person who pushed this guy. He laid it on the ground, his head bleeding. Yeah. Serious concussion. He's apparently alive. Last time I heard, he's still alive, but in critical condition at the hospital.
Yeah.
I was absolutely, when I first saw it, I was just absolutely shocked. How could this happen? And then I found out that the other officers went on strike because they didn't want the officer responsible to get in trouble.
Let's not forget the official police excuse, which was he tripped and fell.
Yeah. But they were told, clear this square. So they went out there and clobbered everybody. I've seen them. They go out with clubs and hit them. That's why we really need a new philosophy of policing. The police are basically an invading army right now, and they respond to everything with making unified front and charge in and clobber everyone.
Imagine that you want to, you make a stand in solidarity with your colleagues, and the hill you've chosen to die on is to defend pushing down 75-year-olds with your billy club and leaving them bleeding on the pavement. That's your stand for activism. That just speaks volumes to me.
I'm reminded so much of intersectionalism and how everything's connected. And even just right now, we just see how racial equality is heavily tied into ageism and elder abuse. I mean, it all connects.
This is what Gandhi said. He said, if you have any group of people you treat badly, you create this fear in you that somehow you'll be on the other end of all this abuse, and it makes you crazy and it poisons your whole culture. If there's
I actually read I also read a article recently that it was actually a very high percentage of police brutality incidents have been against disabled people.
I think it's anybody vulnerable.
Yeah.
Anybody you think you can get away with clobbering. I know the one that got my attention years ago was the one right near where I lived in Daly City, where the cop just shot somebody dead at the BART station. And so the police stopped the trains and impounded all the cell phones and regarded the situation as fixed. But then they let one train leave and someone had a cell phone and got it away. That's the only reason we ever found out. And they all perjured themselves in court, lying about it. They all stuck together because, they're like soldiers. The important thing is to hold the line and protect your brother. And protecting your brother from a drug dealer shooting at you is the same thing as protecting your brother from those evil lawyers attacking you in court. I understand it. To their point of view, going to court and being prosecuted for what you did on the job is just another attack to fight off. It's a big cultural problem, and I don't see any solution coming in a hurry. Anyway, so I guess we're back up here. This one I thought was interesting. BGP is garbage. Mudge went before Congress 30 or 40 years ago talking about it. All the internet routes on it, and it's totally unverified. And so I didn't know this. There was a thing called BGP-SEC that never went off the ground. This is what's apparently really happening. RPKI. And it sounds like complete garbage, like IPsec for IP version 6. What this is it's another public key infrastructure just to verify border gateway protocol updates with its own outdated, different PKI system I don't know why they don't just put it on top of HTTPS or something. But anyway, that's what it does. So now they're going to sign records, and all the Border Gateway Protocol servers have to join this new complicated system that people don't understand. It reminds me so much of IP version 6 IPsec. DNSSEC. DNSSEC is what I'm thinking of. That never really rolled out, but they've got it here. Cloudflare supports it, and so you have to have you get your updates from an autonomous system telling you how to route to things, and then you have this thing that are not CAs. You have trust anchors, a separate system of trust servers on the internet. So now we got 3 of them. We got certificate authorities for HTTPS. We got the DNS root for DNSSEC, and now we got trust anchors for BGPsec. On the grand scheme of things, this seems like madness to me, but that's what we're apparently really going with, is this third public key system based on a bunch of trusted roots that we're all going to have these certificates verifying things. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, it's important to learn about, and it's supported now by Cloudflare, and it's supported by MikroTik routers. MikroTik routers just developed their latest beta, now supports this RPKI thing. So we'll see what comes of that. And it is the new baffling thing our students can learn about.
Yeah.
Anyway. So we should know this word, and it will be gradually, I'm sure people will be screaming for the next 10 years, why didn't you all implement this mind-boggling thing like DNSSEC? And everyone said, because it's too much work and it doesn't seem any good. And they said, well, it won't do any good until everyone joins it. Like, well, then it's going to wait forever, like IP version 6 and stuff. There are all these things that are a whole lot of work for no benefit this year, and then they wonder why no one does it. Anyway, so Facebook is going to save people. Oh yeah, Facebook is going to promote Trump, right?
So speaking of manipulating elections, Facebook is making the grand gesture to save us all from foreign interference in our elections.
Well, as a matter of fact, that would be good.
Well, sure. They're going to hide and flag posts that are from state-sponsored media outlets outside the U.S. And then, like the subheading says, paving the way for more lies from local politicians.
Which the main thing that matters is false news from Trump to suppress the vote. That's how he won last time, and that's his only possible path to victory this time. Well, targeted ads to convince black people not to vote.
Now he's gonna have free reign to do that on Facebook. So
yeah, well,
you gotta protect those 1%ers.
Well, and one thing about this is Mark Zuckerberg cannot be fired. He is the king. Nobody else has any vote. His own board of directors can't get rid of him. So there's one person, and he's closely allied himself to Trump. That's his position. Now Twitter is opposing Trump, and some other group too. So it's possible that if Twitter was to kick Trump off, I think he would lose the election. He's very, very dependent on Twitter, even more than Facebook. Anyway, I think he admitted if it wasn't for Twitter, he would never be president. Anyway.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, there was somebody made a fake account and posted copies of President Trump's tweets, and they got flagged, and his account got banned.
Oh, there you go. Well, yeah, but I think that's true. They never pretended it was fair. I mean, the only reason they put up with him is because he is the president, which is not totally unreasonable to say whatever he says, it's important just because of who he is. But
didn't he get banned for terms of service, like overly violent reasons, with like 12 hours or something?
They put a warning on like 2 tweets, and he freaked out. But they didn't ban him.
Well, what happened is, so for President Trump, they put on the fact-checking thing where he said something about something about voter fraud, and Twitter had that automatic thing saying, here's the facts on voter fraud, it's not real. And Trump got pissed and said, oh, Twitter is biased against me and all this stuff. And so somebody, they put up a account and just copied his tweets. And sure enough, I mean, Twitter is just doing the opposite to Trump. They treat him with kid's glove. And to be honest, he's the president.
Yeah.
There's good reason for him to be on Twitter no matter what, but it's just the whole, well, I mean, we're really off topic, but the whole idea that somehow Twitter is out to get Trump is, I think, it is pushing it, to say the least.
Compared to Facebook.
Facebook.
Yes. Anyway, so this is the one that hit a lot of news. Boy, I heard a lot of angry people like Charlie Miller and everybody about this. Zoom not encrypting everything. So what do you think of this, Irvin?
If you pay for it, then they'll do end-to-end. If you don't pay for it, it won't be encrypted, because that's where it's possible that people could be doing malicious things with Zoom. So they want to have that open in case someone is using it in an inappropriate manner, so that they can dive in and send it to the cops or FBI or whatever you have.
Yep. And this is the perennial thorny issue. I mean, people want to clean up social media, and then they don't want any way to tell the cops about it. And you can't really have both of those. I mean, it's
that's how they're doing it. If you pay, then end to end. Otherwise,
of course, if you pay, then they know who you are.
Yeah.
So in a way, that's kind of reasonable. That's why, and I thought it was funny. Charlie Miller was mad and screaming and yelling at these guys. And Stamos, I think Alex Stamos is the guy that was hired to set it. He said he had a pretty reasonable explanation of why this is really the best thing to do. It's like the classic security thing. Some security nerd says you should be 100%, you should be very secure. And the business people say, well, it really doesn't make sense to put that much effort into this part of the business. I mean, I don't think anyway, it's a basically religious issue in InfoSec, this encrypting everything all the time.
Yep. Yes, it is.
And people are very strongly on one side or the other typically. Anyway, it is a fact that if you use Zoom, in principle, the cops can probably see what you're doing. That I never thought anything else, but in case anybody thought something else, they should get over it.
Yep.
And I would assume, by the way, that the end-to-end encryption, they can probably get in that too, just like everyone else can, by doing something like harvesting from your browser, like that encrypted email service did.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's not secure 100% anyway.
I doubt it. I mean, you could, but the point is there's no real reason to do that. Usually the company providing the service can get in the stuff, and most of the time you accept that. Like your ISP can see everything, your phone company can see everything, and so on. Mm-hmm. If you use a VPN, your VPN provider can see everything. If you really want nobody seeing anything, then you have to handle all the keys yourself, and that turns out to be very, very, very unpleasant.
Yep.
Anyway, so there's an inmate being pepper sprayed.
Yeah. So a lot of this violence isn't just happening in the streets; it's happening within places like jails. An inmate who is briefly detained, supposedly, only going to be there for a little bit. James Floyd was in his cell, and he had asthma and a few other conditions. And they decided that the police decided to pepper spray James, and James is now dead because of it.
Yeah, this just keeps happening. And I know those rubber bullets are not as benign as they want to pretend, and tasers are not as benign.
We'll get into that in a second. Don't worry, Sam.
Yeah. But I mean, it's they try to use these less violent means, but they're not safe even that way. Yeah,
it's like no matter where you are with the police, you are not safe. If you're just walking down the street and you're 75 years old and don't pose a threat to anyone, they'll kill you. If you're in a jail cell, they'll kill you. I mean, there's nowhere safe.
The Oakland Police Department decided to, or it may have been the Alameda County Sheriffs actually, decided to pepper spray and tear gas a bunch of high school and middle school students who had a peaceful protest at the high school in Oakland the other day. In broad daylight, not breaking any rules whatsoever. Follow the rules, get tear gassed anyway.
Yeah. It's and I've seen this before. This reminds me of when Trump's first Muslim ban went into effect. He just ordered it, didn't give anybody any instructions at all. And the next day, all the Border Patrol people just made random decisions to do stupid things, like interview people to see what they think of Trump to decide whether to let them in or not. This is, obviously the cops do not know what the rules are. They don't know what they should do. They haven't been told, here's how we're going to handle a protest. I've seen some places where they do it, like in San Francisco, they've done pretty well. In Berkeley, at one time, they did pretty well. There's a time when they actually had so many protests that they actually trained their cops how to handle a protest without escalating it. And it works sometimes. But if you just don't give them any clear instructions and send them off, and you have someone like Trump saying what we want is more police brutality, and we want you to hit them hard and show them we mean business, then this is what you get.
You know, I've never had an opportunity to pay attention to the police scanner before, but I will say that because I have been listening to it lately, my belief that the police know what they're doing has plummeted greatly.
Yeah. I mean, I got cops in my extended family, and I know what's going on. And I was impressed. One of the guys in my friend's brother was the cop at the Beta Breakers March. And I'd never been there before. I went to the Beta Breakers about 15 years ago. So we were going along, and all these people are like riding bikes and everything. And we're going, and some of them were just walking around completely naked. And then there's this cop standing at the top of the hill. And I said, I don't know. He bust people for being naked. And he didn't care at all. He's wild. Everybody's friendly. And I said, oh, I'm surprised, because technically they're breaking the law. But I see that he's exercising discretion and saying, I don't really care about spoiling everybody's fun, giving them trouble. I'm just here in case somebody starts a fight or something. And I said, that's actually a pretty good idea. And I talked to him about that 10 years later. He said, yeah, they gave me a lot of grief about that. They said I did the wrong thing. And I said, actually, I thought you did the right thing. I remember when I was a little kid, they told me people smoke pot at rock concerts. They said, they can't do that. It's illegal. And they said, well, it is, but the cops can't start arresting people when there's thousands of people doing it. It'll just create chaos and stuff. And that introduced me to this difficult concept that you have to not just obey the law like a computer, but you have to exercise discretion. So, I mean, I think a lot of cops are trying to do the best they can. Some of them are just brutal thugs. And a lot of them, just like security people and everything, just really don't know what they're supposed to do. And their boss doesn't know either. And their orders aren't clear. And they're just trying to make it up as they go along.
Yep.
The only way to fix it is to have clear training, clear rules to do something sensible. And there are countries that have done that, like have training in de-escalation, training in procedures. You don't just jump into physical combat. You have this plan of gradual motions,
That's one of the things that blows my mind the most. Like in this state, in California, it takes a master's degree if you want to teach second grade. It takes 3,000 hours of training if you want to cut people's hair, or it takes 8,000 hours of training if you want to be an electrician. If you want to be a cop, it takes 730 hours of training.
Well,
that's insane.
Well, I don't know. I just think, I'm not even sure it's the quantity of training, it's what they teach them. And they aren't teaching.
I think it's both.
Yeah. But I mean,
and how much time?
I thought about this years ago. I thought Andy Griffith on TV was the greatest cop ever, because he doesn't shoot his gun. People come in with problems. He just sort of is like a father figure. All right, why don't you guys knock it off and stop being stupid? That's what you should be if you're a cop. Anyway, so that was the pepper spray, and now we're up to, I'm losing my place. We're up to here. Okay, so then I just thought I'd put this up. Irvin pointed this out to me, and it's bloody awesome. There's a PowerShell CTF where you connect and you have to sign the passwords. They're hidden more and more on these servers, and you get in with PowerShell. It's like the Bandit challenges for Linux, but this is PowerShell. So I put it in the CTF we're going to do at Black Hat and other conferences. And, I think I was just really happy with this. I'm now pleased. This is something my students haven't had, is a lot of my students do not know how to do anything on the command line. And so I finally have a basics where they do binary, they do all the basic Linux command line, then the more advanced Linux command line, and then PowerShell command line. So you have some practice at solving several challenges of that before you start doing anything else in hacking. And I think that's been necessary for a long time. So I'm glad to finally get there. Anyway, I think this is awesome. And that's all I want to say about it.
One of those great finds.
Yeah. And now we got... people won't be immediately fired. Well,
yeah, or possibly at all. So,
yeah.
Just another example of the slow to no oversight. You'd think that certain things that we've seen over the past, days to weeks to years would not just equates in immediate dismissal, but criminal charges also. Well, not so much. And
well, I mean, we've got 38% of Americans and the commander-in-chief saying that there should be more brutality. There is no problem, and we have to like crush these people and dominate them. So I don't understand how you'd expect the cops to expect to be disciplined when a preponderance of the authority figures tell them to be more brutal.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's definitely got to be some top-down change here. But there are a lot of politicians that are really digging in their heels on avoiding doing that.
Of course.
Well, the whole Republican Party wants to have more brutality, and black people have nothing to complain about in their position. It's kind of a drag. I mean, like the cops take orders, and the people above them have not made up their mind about the orders. This kind of reminds me of the Vietnam War, where the soldiers are getting stupid orders, and now where are you going?
Well, more people are going to die and be permanently disabled.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the next election will be very important to determine whether you have 4 more years of this or whether we start going back the other way.
What blows my mind is the officers that pushed that old man onto the ground.
Yeah.
They are suspended without pay. They're not fired.
Yeah.
They're not dismissed. They're not charged with assault.
They're just at home.
They're grounded.
They're grounded. Yes, they're grounded.
Yep. And the point is, they may very well get off entirely because the laws make it very impossible to prosecute a cop for doing anything on the job.
Qualified immunity has got to be, we got to revisit that. That's not working out.
I agree with you, but it is not a majority opinion in Americans who vote at the moment. But maybe it will be. Anyway, so I saw this one about the asteroid, but that one's going to miss us. But anyway, that's
those two articles, those two go together. Yeah, so there's a asteroid passing by Earth because just what more do we need? Besides COVID, besides the protests, besides the madnesses, let's have an asteroid.
Killer Hornets.
Well, this one's going to miss us, but I thought the sweet meteor of death. Awesome. This was a good one. Yeah. So let's see. I can get rid of the music.
Oh, the music is fine.
So I thought this was great. There you go. So there you go.
The happy music.
Oh, that's one of the great Twitter accounts.
You're almost done. You got the sweatshirt at the end.
Yeah, the sweet meteor of death, This guy is great. I listen to him a lot. He's running for president too. SMOD for president, So anyway, yeah. Yep. I think it's time for that.
That's funny. I've seen Giant Meteor 2020, but Meteor of Death is even better.
Oh yeah. That's been around for years. It's like Internet of Shit. It's one of those great comedy channels. And then
it's been so peaceful.
I saw this one.
Yeah.
Right. So we were talking about the bullets earlier, and the fact that they are less lethal. They're not non-lethal. They do serious damage. And here we have another person, Brandon Sains, who was out protesting, and a police officer. He was protesting peacefully, and police officers shot him in the eye.
Yeah.
And now he's permanently blind.
Yeah,
And this is not the first person to lose an
been
eye over this.
There have been several people this has happened to. One of them was actually a photojournalist this last week. And it was interesting because I read that in the last round of Paris protests that there was something uncovered that they were actually deliberately aiming for people's eyes in order to provoke fear.
Which is what they have been ordered to do.
Yep.
It is a very difficult problem.
So, and you can also kill people with those. So people have also died.
Yeah. I should find that picture of the rubber bullet being opened, and inside is a metal ball.
Yeah. I heard about that.
I've seen a few different ones that are just insane. And then there was another issue is that sometimes these flashbangs don't explode. Like some guy's 3-year-old found one on their yard the other day. Just like, Daddy, what is this? Oh, I'm glad it didn't blow up my toddler.
Yes. Another issue, throwing grenades out. Yeah. And so then we got, Liz had a bunch of fake ones. So I thought
it's Friday. So I thought we should have Fake News Friday. And also with the world the way it is, it's almost like you can't even tell the difference anymore. Fake news and real news.
Fake news fake, or is fake news real, or is real news fake?
The Onion has been on a roll this past couple of weeks. They have really just like Anonymous sort of come out of hibernation with some of their putting some great work in. So these were 3 of my favorites from this week. And fittingly enough was I really like the middle one where the police this one.
You run over them with tires, and those are soft rubber tires. They're not supposed to hurt people.
So this one is these are worth a read if you need.
They are. And there was a new one. Yeah, there are so many of these. There was a new one just today. It was great, but I can't find it. But there's a lot of them. It's the Onion is necessary comic relief in a time. I remember when Ronald Reagan got in, is when they said, the Saturday Night Live people said, I don't even need to write jokes anymore. You just look at the headlines of the normal news, and it's just as crazy. And it never seemed to stop after that. But anyway, especially with Trump, and like almost all my T-shirts are quotes from Trump.
There was only one other thing I wanted to mention today and I'll just drop a link right here. It's actually serious, but I was trying to find any kind of repository that was cataloging the instances of police brutality.
Oh, that's a good idea.
It took me a while, but I finally found one, and this is actually pretty cool. Plus, stuff's open source. You can actually use this data for different things, and they encourage people to update and catalog it. So I just wanted to put this out here in case anybody else is looking for it, or I've heard people say things like, "Oh, that's just a couple isolated incidents that the media is blowing it out of proportion and all that stuff." Well, no, it's not, and this is a good place to access some of that data.
Yeah, it is. And I'm glad you reminded me. The other thing about that right-wing argument that statistics show that black people don't get harassed by police any more than white people is, of course, the statistics are all fudged and falsified, like the coronavirus statistics. So it looks like science, but it's not science.
Right.
And that's why they are right, of course, that the left-wing media just goes by anecdotal reports. You just find a few videos shot on cell phones and you think that means something. You don't know what was happening when the cell phones weren't on. I say, yeah, that is anecdotal evidence, but I think that's probably more reliable than these so-called statistics. But that's how we end up in this world where there's just two different realities, and the people on the right see that everything is just totally different than the people on the left, which is a very difficult issue, and I don't know the answer. Anyway, any more comments? I'm going to stop this recording.